If I could pick
Yes.
someone to follow up Rick Stingel's Person of the Year, Ben Bernanke, seriously,
It would be this guest.
it would be our next guest.
Yes,
Introduce
it would.
him. I'm
Republican
excited.
representative from Texas and member of the Financial Services Committee, Congressman Ron Paul, joining us on the set of Morning Joe. Nice to have you on.
And Ron,
Thank you.
you actually, you just wrote a book about the Fed. I mean, my God, tell us. Off camera, you were telling me you think that Ben Bernanke probably deserves to be Person of the Year because of the power he has.
He is. He's the most powerful man in the world. I believe a case could be made for that. Because he controls the supply of money, which is the dollar, which is the reserve currency of the world. He can create $1 trillion in secret without any monitoring of the Congress. So there's no transparency, and I think he's more powerful than the president.
Well, the president, we were talking off air, again, the president has all these checks and balances. Bernanke and every other Fed chief operates in secrecy, like you said, can create $1 trillion out of thin air.
Right. The big question is, has he used that power for good or for evil? And of course, my side of the argument is the system is evil, and the chairman, whether it's Greenspan or Bernanke, they can do no good. They cause our troubles, they cause the inflation, they cause the bubbles, and therefore the bust, the correction, is always their fault. So the problems that we have, and because this is such a worldwide phenomenon, you know, since 1971, everything has become worldwide, a global economy, no backing of any currency, and yet our Federal Reserve controls the gold, so to speak, with the paper gold. And therefore, this whole mess that we're in, which has a long way to go, has been caused by the Federal Reserve.
All right, that's exactly what I was going to ask you. We just heard Rick Stengel say he saved us from the Great Depression.
From the brink.
He put all this $1 trillion here, $3 trillion he pumped into the economy. Who was responsible, if you name 1, 2, 3 people or institutions, to take this country to the brink, greatest country on earth, to the brink of a depression?
Well, the Federal Reserve, but there has to be.
How?
They will be by creating money out of thin air, causing interest rates to be low, causing the malinvestment, and causing an artificial economic expansion that has to correct. Like build too many houses, eventually it crashes.
Bernanke gave us the disease and cured it both.
Yeah, but there are other things that contribute to it, like Congress having laws that say you must make bad loans and give money to people who.
By the way, I've got to interrupt your Pat, as you read my book.
Right.
That quote by Ron Paul, and I remember the date, on September 10th.
It's amazing.
September 10th, 2003, and buy my book or just Google September 10th, 2003, Ron Paul. Ron, in September of 2003, you predicted in the banking committee exactly what was going to happen in 2008.
Word for word.
To a T, word for word. And I read that, and people always say, are you making that up? You knew in 2003 what was going to happen.
You're better than I am. I can't remember the dates. I knew that was the position I've taken for years and years. And matter of fact, I was motivated to go into Congress and run for political office in the 70s because I understood the principles of malinvestment. But I didn't come up with these ideas. It's the Austrian economists and the sound money people that said this would happen, and they were correct. Matter of fact, when the Bretton Woods collapsed in 1971, that was the confirmation that Austrian economics were on the right track.
And didn't you run afoul of some Austrian economists?
Yeah,
At some point.
I said something about dead Austrian economists during one of my campaigns. Rockwell and the fellows have.
Well, we have a few live.
Did Rockwell kill you?
I was gone. Murray Rothbard, they were gone.
He was your friend.
He was my great friend, Murray was. But we slammed shut the gold window in 1971. I was with Nixon in August. That's what you're talking about.
Your fault.
But look, you know what they're going to do? They had all that money abroad, Ron. You asked me. The Brits were going to come in and clean out Fort Knox. What would you have done?
Well, you should have done a lot more, a lot sooner. That is, don't print so much money.
Look, it was
prior to that.
LBJ's guns and butter, but what do you do at that date? I mean, my friends tell me you should have let them clean it out. You can't let them do that.
I would say, but that was only half the thing. If you're going to quit, what you have to quit is printing the money. So we quit handing out the gold, but then we said, we're just going to print money and there's no restraint. So what you ushered in was a system in 1971, which created this huge bubble, and that's where the real
Congressman, given the bubble and given restraint, I mean, where would you stand now on regulation? Would somebody like you say less regulation, or after the crisis would you say, well, actually, we do need tighter
Well, I want
regulation?
more regulations of different things. I want more regulations on Treasury, on the Congress, and on the Fed. But I want to have less mischief by bureaucrats because they do a great deal of harm. We introduced a lot of regulations in the 30s, and it just prolonged the Depression. When we had Enron fail, we had Sarbanes-Oxley. That did harm because our businesses left our country. I don't like those kind of regulations. But you have to enforce regulations like contracts and bankruptcies. We ignore that. We don't follow the contract of money. So the government does everything opposite. They violate contracts and they don't use bankruptcies. They bail out people. So yes, you want the market to regulate. You want to get rid of bad investments and people who are bankrupt.
Ron, really quickly, we're coming up on a hard break, but I've got to ask you about Afghanistan. Pat Buchanan, myself, other conservatives very concerned about the so-called surge. Concerned we're going to be in Afghanistan for another decade. What do you think?
We'll be there for a decade or longer if the money holds out. But because we're doing exactly what Osama bin Laden wanted us to do, that is get ourselves bogged down, spend a lot of money, and get people, discouraged about being bogged down. At the same time, have an incentive to build up the Al-Qaeda. So we're doing exactly the same.
Yeah, the thing is, Al-Qaeda's not even there.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people who hate our guts, and they do it because we bomb them, invade them, and occupy them, and steal their oil, and all these things. So that's going to that will continue.
What would President Ron Paul do? Bring the troops home?
The troops would have been home by now. I'd bring them home. The famous saying, declare victory and come home. There's not much victory to declare. But I'd just come home. I'd come home from Korea and Germany. Save the money. This country needs some money. We're all broke. Quit printing the money. Save the money.
Brother
Okay, Ben.
Okay. All right, we got the amen quarter over here.